everyone, it's me, Carol. Welcome back to my channel as we continue with our series on the court cards from the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. As always, so glad that you joined me today. And before I begin discussing each of the cards, I would like to do a short little recap on information that pertains to all of the court cards. Now, if you've been following this series, especially the series specifically on the court cards, you may recall that the Knights, Queens, and Kings have astrological modalities. In astrology, they're called qualities. And there are 3 in astrology, and they correspond to just the Knights, Queen, and Kings. Now, those 3 qualities are mutable, fixed, and cardinal. Last week's video, we did the Knights, and of course, we talked about the mutable quality. We are doing the Queens. The Queens are the qualities of the fixed signs, and each modality quality represents an expression. So if you can think of the expression of the Queens with this fixed quality, it basically represents patience, reliability, consistency. The Queens preserve, fixed signs in astrology preserved, and we will talk about those 4 fixed signs when we do each of the cards. Now, we also discussed that the overall elements of each court card, there is one given, and that element is water, as well as the element represented by each of the individual suits. Now, because these videos seem to be long, today I will only be discussing 2 out of the 4 in order to keep them short, and also it allows me to give you just that little bit more information. Okay, so let's put these 2 aside. We'll do that in our next video, and we are concentrating on the Queen of Wands and the Queen of Cups today. I always like to begin with the Wand suit, so let's begin with the Queen of Wands. And you heard me say that all queens are fire, water. So here we have a queen that is water of fire. And immediately we know that these 2 elements are antagonistic. Fire can and most often will extinguish water. Did I say that right? Fire will be extinguished by water. That's what I mean to say. Most often, some fires you cannot put out with water, especially those with gasoline. But for this sake, we know that the representation of those 2 elements, water and fire, do not really mix well together. For water, when you add heat, i.e. fire, to it, you change its form. So water can dissipate into steam and dissipate into nothingness if you apply too much heat. So in order for these 2 elements to get along, work together, achieve mutual success, they have to have an agreement and an understanding prior to them mixing. I will also tell you karmically in relationships, when you see a water and fire relationship, I have come to believe, I think astrologers have also declared that there is usually some karmic tide that they are exemplifying, working out. It could be a gift, it could be very challenging, but that is part of the process of having those 2 signs meet, marry, have children, have a relationship, and everything else that goes along with that. So I just wanted to kind of throw that in here. So with that being said, applying this to the energy and the personality of the Queen of Wands, I always like to say that she has these two elements, then she has to have her heart and mind be in unison, or her mind and heart vice versa. It doesn't matter, but she has to understand, unite, and the whole card speaks about this, which we're going to discover here today, about the importance of balance. And let's look at where that is represented in the Queen of Wands. In fact, her throne sits on this foundation of balance. Why do I say that? Because her throne sits on a foundation of balance that is the color gray. And you know that in the tarot, color is very symbolic. Knowing what that color symbolically means helps a great deal with interpreting the images of the cards. So this gray foundation says that as a foundation, the blending of black and white opposites is crucial for her to have the authority that she holds as being queen. So that's the first thing that we're going to see. Now, on one side of this great platform is the three pyramids. And the reason I want to point these out today is we've seen them in the three other prior cards. Now, we've seen them in the Page of Wands. Here's the three pyramids, but this time they are on the right side. And we know that the page is really a neophyte. He's quite immature, and the pyramids are not really well defined, so there's more work, maturity that he needs to do. What do pyramids represent? Especially three of them, which is a perfect union of creation, the three energies. Well, pyramids usually represent wisdom and spiritual attainment. We also saw them in last week's video, the Knights. Now here, they're on the other side of the card, the left side. And I also want to bring to your attention the color, going back to color and its importance. Here we have like an earth brown. They're grounded. They haven't, that color is a grounding color. It's not a spiritual color. And all of a sudden now in the Knights, we have a lighter, almost an orange color with, from the east, the sun, enlightenment. We have the shading of yellow. We also have it where they're a little more defined, and we see the four sides of a pyramid. They're not so cyclical like they are in the Page of Wands. Then today's card, here we see the pyramids. Not only are they fully yellow, but they are behind the queen. She has learned the spirituality, the lessons, the wisdom that the pyramids represent. So they are behind her. And I thought that would be something important for us to really talk about in understanding how the process of maturity, knowledge is incorporated in the powers and interpretation of the court cards, because of the symbology, and that is certainly shown in the pyramids. Now, they're on her left side, and then on the right side, of course, is the body of water. Anytime we have water, we know that it represents the unconscious. All right, now, also it represents the emotions as well. Remember, all queens are water. So there's a balance with the earth, which represents tangible, and then there is a balance with the unconscious, the unknown. And again, she sits in between those two. She also equally balances with both of her hands. She has her fire, her wands, her suit in her left hand. Remember, When we see a direct figure facing us, it is a mirror image. So the right is the left and the left is the right. So her power, her fire, she uses it with her right hand. It is also held with a grip, and I wanted to also show you that. She holds that with her grip. She's very active in using that, and it also indicates, again, that she is a queen. She has authority to use that wand. Now, in her left hand, and the way that she holds it so easily, almost like her thumb and her first finger unite here very gently, is a sunflower. And that is in her left receptive hand. That is the feminine side. Again, wanting to point out how the cards indicate balance, or a reminder when you see this card, the importance of balance. We have 2 lions on each side of her throne. They are carved in there. And also we have 2 lions, let's call it in maybe the backdrop of her throne. And that again, 2 is a number of opposites. 2 is a number of seeking balance. Now the 2 lions in the back cloth are facing one another, and they are both with one hand holding a sunflower. But the 2 lions on the side of her throne, the arms of her throne, look real closely. You have one of the lions who seems to have his eye open, but then the other lion here seems to be looking up at her in a direction, opposites. Okay, now, what I find interesting, now this is the traditional Rider-Waite deck, the original. In my readings, and sometimes when I'm doing videos, I'll use the Universal Rider-Waite deck. And I wanted to bring this out here to you because it's a little different here. Both eyes seem to be looking straight ahead, where again, let me bring that, she seems to be looking up. But there is a difference. One has the mouth closed, and this one has the mouth open. Opposites again. There's also no growth on her crown, top of her crown, where there is here. But again, these are indications of some of the symbology done a little bit differently in the older deck than there is in the Universal Rider deck. So what does all this mean? Not only is it having to do with balance and blending balance or using both for power, because the queen, again, has power, has authority, but it also represents the zodiac sign, the fixed sign that the Queen of Wands represents. And that fixed sign is Leo. And Leo is known as the lion. And it is a very strong astrological sun sign that is ruled by the sun. And it also indicates leadership, knowledge, vitality, and certainly creativity. Now, she also controls her animal nature. We see that not only by the 2 lions, but we also see that by the black cat, which we'll get into here in a little bit further down in the interpretations. But what I'm trying to tell you here is there is an instinctual nature of the Leo lion. We all have an animal nature about us, and it is, we respond to it sometimes through our instincts. And the Queen of Wands uses not only her firepower and her knowledge, but also her animal nature, her instincts. And that is also represented by some of the colors that we see here. Now, I want to point out that there are different schools of thought as to what this V-shaped collar is on her gown. Some people say it has to do with an animal skin. Others say no, it is a checkered pattern that we find very strongly in the Masonic temples and rituals, and it connects her to those ancient mysteries. But the fact remains that this very deep V shape seems to be pointing to the solar plexus, which is another indication of our gut instincts, where we respond to fight or flight, or we get this insight to do something where the mind really hasn't gotten time to respond or logically think it through. The other thing that we're seeing here is she has there is something underneath her arms. It is not well depicted here, but it is brown in nature. Again, the more grounding natural instinct. But let's bring back the Rider-Waite Universal cards. And I'm always fascinated by how the brown is depicted, and I question whether, for me, it reminds me of antlers on a deer or a moose, but I definitely contribute to the desires of nature, desires of us as being human beings. She also has the clasp here where her cape is connected, and that is in the shape of a cat's head. Now let's go back to, since we're talking about the cat, let's go back to the black cat. Again, different writers and occultists have meaning for what the black cat represents. Some say that the cat connects the queen to the domestic aspects of life, and certainly that is true, home and heart, and her love for animals and her love for nature, because of course these sunflowers are a part of nature. They connect her also to the zodiac sign of Leo, because the sunflower always faces the sun and depends on the sun for its growth and vitality. And the sunflower is also the type of foliage that not only can we eat the sunflower seeds, but the seeds drop back into the earth and are very, very productive. So the sunflowers are her nature, and her sunflower are her spiritual aspects. And that's why we see them also, the two lions holding one and two above her shoulders, the balance and her understanding of reproduction. Let's get back to the cat. I initially said that there are some occultists who basically contributed to a house cat, domestic influences and mannerisms of any queen of fire, any queen of wands. Now, there are other ones who connect the black cat with the queen's inner intuitive powers, hinting at her knowledge and the use of magic and the underworld. Now, that certainly is true of fire and water. It's an alchemical process, spirit, fire, and water being matter. So I certainly believe that can be both the case, as well as the representation of what spirit and matter is in the six-pointed star, also known as the Seal of Solomon. Now, going back to the reproductive nature of the sunflower and of what happens when spirit and matter intertwine, as we see in the six-pointed star, where we have one pyramid, fire, going towards the upper realms, and then the water, matter, coming down, and when they meet, they combust or have creation. And that is also represented by why the Queen of Wands sits basically with maybe a provocative legs open. The power of co-creation, creativity. And we know that when man and woman get together, which are represented by fire, male, water, women, then those two meet, you have magic, you have creativity, you have the seed coming down, being fertile by the water, and then you have a new creation. All right, so we can go on and on. So what are some of the interpretations of the Queen of Wands? Well, her personality is warm and supportive. She's independent. She seeks to be involved and procreated not only with her home and her family, but with a cause and a purpose. Home and family, of course, are very important to her, but sometimes that fiery energy after the kids are gone, need to pursue their own interest. When this card comes up, though, in a reading, it also may indicate that it's time for you to take a leadership role, or maybe even to take a risk. Or is it a time for you to listen to your gut or move forward with your ideas and your dreams and your own desires? When this card comes up reverse, it can also represent someone who is assisting or consulting you. There may be some resistance there. Sometimes when the card comes up in the reading, it indicates someone on the shadow side of the personality of the Queen of Wands could be quite jealous, domineering. It could be a friend, it could be a lover, it could be a co-worker. The shadow side of the personality is also sometimes overly determined and headstrong to achieve own personal goals, egotistical, a dramatic style, flamboyant, in mannerism, and sometimes they can be materialistic and self-serving. So those are very shadow qualities of this card. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our Queen of Cups. Water is all the queens, and we know that the suit of cups is water. So here we have water of water, and astrologically it is the sign of Leo. And I want to make sure I am up looking, make sure it's in your monitor, and it is. Now, I think I said astrological sign of Leo. I correct that. Astrological sign of Scorpio. And Scorpio is a sign that is quite complex. Ask any astrologer. I remember the old astrology books used to always make Scorpio very malefic and underhanded, and thank goodness that has changed. But Scorpios are very passionate about what they do. They have a lot of energy and certainly sometimes rule by their emotions. Of course, the whole chart has to set up, so I don't want to elaborate on anything because that is it's incorrect. But the astrological interpretations for this card as a fixed sign is definitely that personality aspects of the Scorpio. Now, she is also a queen that is very soulful, very much in touch with her feelings. And Scorpios do seek truth. They make great detectives, lawyers, people who really like to dig underneath to see what's going on, certainly psychologists, and we'll get into that a little bit more. But the Queen of Cups is searching for higher knowledge and certainly spirituality. Now here we see a very introspective queen, intensely gazing at her cups, to the point that if we didn't know the Suit of Cups, we would look at this cup and say, it really isn't a cup, it's more like a chalice. And yes, it is. We will discuss that a little further down. But first, let's look at some other of the images. Let's go ahead and look at, she's sitting on a throne decorated with cherub-like mermaids. Remember, we talked about the elementals and the Indians, and that is definitely the elementals in the Suit of Cups. And we have shells and we have mermaids, placing that connection certainly with this cup. Now, let's say the cherub mermaids are basically the guardians of the divine, and they are ready to protect and guide her. They're above her, almost coming out of a shell. Now, a shell is usually very closed up and reveals something when it is broken open, very much like the personality of the Scorpio nature and what this card represents. Now we also have this sand, or the land that she and her throne are sitting on, covered with multicolored pebbles. And what that represents is her connection to all people of the earth. She also represents sensitivity, deep insight, intuition, the use and power of the subconscious. We are talking about the subconscious here. We have water and water. We have a perfectly blue sky. The throne is sitting on water. Her gown is blue. Her cape has waves of water. So we are really submerged into the subconscious and the intuition. And what she teaches us is the use and power of the subconscious and what we can achieve when we have these two combined. She's also giving us that clue of the importance of combining this, because her right leg, here we have a side view, so her right leg has this blue stocking. Now, blue is the color that represents the unconscious, and it is touching her body, the right side of her body, her conscious side, into the unconscious water. There's where we are blending, let's say, male consciousness with the unconscious female of her right side of her body. And also she has the chalice more on her right side, because as a female, she has the power of the unconscious. She is a Queen of Cups of the fixed sign of the zodiac, the water sign. So she needs to be more towards the energy of the male, which is the right side of the body. And when she blends these two properly, she is able to perform magic. She is able to reveal truth and understand those things that are unknown. Let's talk about this cup, this chalice, okay? We have two black winged angels here. Now, the black is the search for the unknown, that which is not enlightened, that which is still a mystery. And because the wings, look at the way the wings are formed, they're shaped like a moon, and we have a waning and waxing moon. Again, the understanding of the celestial powers of when to achieve, when to dig, when to go in the underworld, when it is proper, when it is conducive, and works with us, not against us. And she seems to be made aware of that. We've kind of surmised that the cup is really a chalice, and it has this almost this Gothic architectural steeple and a cross on the top. And this basically connects the card to the church, which was back in time, and forgive me for not knowing, I'm going to say the 14th century. Don't hold me to that, but that's when the church really represented the Holy Mother versus how it is now. So there was this feminine Holy Mother energy, meeting, union, acknowledgement, and worship in the church back then, and her cup seems to depict that. Now, keeping in mind that like I said, that the church was, to be a place where we prayed, we meditated, we gained knowledge. That's where we went for deeper knowledge. And to understand the unknown, what was foreign to us or what was secret, what was taboo. That all works into the personality and the energy of this card. Now, as I said before, we have this blue gown, and we also have this dark blue and the light blue of her cape. And it connects her, I want to bring this also into that it connects her to the water, which represents nurturing abilities and a sense of deep connection to the world. We submerge ourselves as a baptism in water. Being in water is what surrounds us when we are in the womb. There is this protection. There is this feeling of goodness. And that is, again, very much all a part of it right here on the right side, where it seems to just submerge into the body of water. So, with all that being said, there is one last thing that I would like to bring to everyone's attention before I get into the divinatory meanings of the card. The esoteric meaning of the color red, as I said earlier, is indicated by the conscious self, and then the blue by the unconscious self, or the feminine aspect, and of course red, the male aspect, and that we need both of these in search of knowledge. And there is a little bit of red here that she sits upon in her cape. So her lining of her cape is this desire to know, this desire for knowledge, as well as the clasp that holds her cape is this red shell, this desire again to know. So lastly, the art and magic, when these two aspects of ourselves are properly controlled, managed, and work, is all in unison with the power that the queens have in the tarot deck. So let's talk about some of the interpretation. She's very nurturing. She is a soulful card. It may indicate one who has the ability to heal. Upon saying that, yes, in the Kabbalah, we give all the queens the, let's say, the modality, the qualities of the mutable, the fixed, and the cardinal signs. But overall, the representation of the court cards have to do with all 12 zodiac signs, and the 3 in each of the court cards. So even though the Queen of Cups represents to the highest the fixed sign Scorpio, it also represents the other zodiac water signs, which are Cancer and Pisces. And here is where I want to add some differentiation into the quality of healing. I find that the Cancer and Pisces zodiac signs are more of a hands-on healers, but that's not cut in stone, and that the Scorpio healing is more in the psychological, mental realm than the other 2 signs. That does not mean that Scorpios cannot be physical healers and working with the chakras and all of that. We have to look at how the whole chart is set up. But I did want to go ahead and differentiate that the Cancers, especially the Pisceans, seem to be very, very sensitive to laying on the hands, and working energy with the bodies. Okay. Other interpretations is this a time to express your thoughts and your feelings openly and honestly? This is a card of truth. When this card comes up, emotions or inspirations are now surfacing and affecting you and those around you are also possible. This card may be coming out now, indicating it's time for you to kind of quiet and listen to your heart and mind, be introspected as the Queen is depicting here. Maybe time for you to research, maybe time for you to learn. Are you interested in some of the esoteric, metaphysical arts of astrology, numerology, tarot, runes, all of those things? And this card usually comes out that it's now time for you to maybe look into that. Sometimes this card reveals untruths. It's telling you that something is surfacing. It's being revealed that wasn't expected. It might be time to get away and nurture and heal yourself. Let's talk about when this card is reversed. When this card is reversed, it's an unreliable woman, sometimes friend, counselor, teacher, caregiver. The personality may be hot and cold, changeable. Codependent tendencies sometimes come up, and if we have codependency tendency, it's sometimes someone who is clingy and needy. Sometimes when this card comes up reverse, someone around you cannot be depended upon at this time. Truth will be revealed that is suspicious in nature, and that you may have to question whether it's true or false. Sometimes this card comes up reverse when someone lives in fantasy and make-believe world, imaginary world. They could be sly and working through their own unhealthy, egotistical needs, and looking for validation, or using the arts in unhealthy ways. Like I said, I didn't want this to be too long, so I basically just used 2 of the 4 of the cups. Thanks everyone for joining me today. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment or email me. And also, if you like these types of video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. I have a lot of videos out there that are really centered around teaching the tarot. Thanks everyone for joining me today. Have a great weekend. Bye for now.